Welcome to the Zeducation Podcast, where it's all about helping people and organizations unleash their greatness. The Zeducation Podcast features lively discussions.
When they share it, you see that they're beginning to feel empowered.
My heart, it's full of pride for me to be at Maitai Samoa.
You don't necessarily need a degree these days. There's so many pathways to success.
Welcome to the Zeducation Podcast. Welcome to the Zeducation Podcast, where we help you unleash your greatness and win both professionally and personally. Today, we're diving into the world of fitness, resilience, and redefining modern fatherhood. Joining us is Cody Hunter, a seasoned fitness professional, former New Zealand athlete, and a true advocate for personal transformation. Cody's journey from aspiring professional rugby player to pioneering the fitness culture in South Korea is nothing short of inspiring. As the founder of 5 CrossFit gyms and a leader of Reebok's Be More Human campaign, he's redefined how we think about fitness, not just as a physical training, but as a foundation for building stronger families and communities. Currently leading Fitness Cartel Manukau and his own coaching business, Cody specializes in helping men and fathers develop the physical and mental resilience needed to show up as leaders, partners, and role models. His vision? To create a global movement that redefines fatherhood and builds a legacy of strength and love. In this episode, Cody will share his insights on overcoming adversity, building resilience, and how fitness can transform not only your body, but your entire life. So stay tuned for actionable tips to take your fitness, mindset, and relationships to the next level. Cody, thank you for jumping on to the Zeducation Podcast. It's so good to have you here, driving all the way from Takapuna out to the other side of Auckland.
Beautiful drive, mate. Beautiful drive.
Beautiful drive.
No
it's worth it, eh? Yeah. Welcome to Pukai. But hey, look, before we get started, normally we ask our guests, can you share something interesting about yourself for our audience?
Oh, mate, that might be the whole podcast, mate.
Let's do it.
I mean, there's a few interesting things. I suppose there's a few things that people probably don't know, but you know, I have dabbled in bits and pieces. So I've been an actor before on big star movies over in Asia. I'd call myself probably a D or E grade actor, but it was a big role. So I've done a bit of TV, a bit of radio. As a crazy Kiwi living in Asia, I was also a voice actor. My voice didn't sound like this at all. I had to be the full American sort of style accent, but I got away with it over in Asia for a little while, so it was pretty cool. So yeah, there's a few different interesting stories about that most people probably don't know of what I've got into before.
That's pretty cool. I mean, now that you mention it, I can kind of see it, the Hollywood actor face right
Russian
here.
Russian gangster. If you needed a Russian gangster.
Hey.
Yeah, I had to speak Russian. I had Russian teachers for a while to prepare me for the role, so there's actually me speaking Russian on a movie that went quite big at that time, and my Russian was terrible, but hey, got it done, eh? Got it done.
Yeah, got it done. And I love
pretty funny.
I love the attitude about you, and that's pretty cool. I mean, you said you've dabbled in a few things, podcasting, acting, but also in fitness. So we're pretty keen, like on this podcast, to tap more into that experience and that side of you is the fitness, the health, the men, the fatherhood type of thing as well. So let's start at the beginning with your journey and how you arrived to where you are today. I know there's a long story, but give us the nice brief version.
Mate, well, I suppose I grew up in a place called Te Anau, down south in deep south of New Zealand. I lived there until I went to university. So even during high school and even primary school, fitness was always a big thing in our environment. So all my friends were the fastest in the school and the fittest. And I was the exact opposite to that guy. So I had the worst athletic sort of skills you'd ever meet. But it forced me, because of my mates were so into it, it forced me to be that guy, you know. So I trained and I used to do fun runs with dudes and come in last. You know, one run we were so far behind that the whole organising committee had gone home. So there's no finish line. It is done, and I'm the dude that's finishing up with no one there. So that impacted me a lot, and probably a real positive way, because it just meant that I super resilient, kept going. Fast forward to puberty, turned into the same size I am now by about 13, but obviously not as heavy. And I was a bit of an athletic freak, I suppose, for where I was. Like I just was fast overnight, strong overnight. So then rugby became my focus in that side of things. So yeah, rugby was a big deal for a while. Went to Otago to play rugby. Played rep grades, all age grades, that sort of thing. But very quickly, my body just started to shut down on me big time. So knees. I've also had my whole face reconstructed. You can see scars. So I've had my whole face peeled off and restructured all through here at the age of about 23, maybe. And then I actually ended up in Christchurch, and then from Canterbury, took a job over in Asia because I wanted to rehab rugby injuries for a year after like 4 knee ops, and never came back until I was married with 2 kids at the age of 40. So, and then during that whole phase was just obviously, fitness has always been a big thing. So once I moved through that, I became a PT in Korea for a little while, and then I opened my own PT studio in about 2010. That turned into this ridiculous, crazy boot camp movement that no one was doing in Asia at the time. So with that just came a lot of, I had this small studio that ended up having, 200 members, and all day would just be boot camps all day that I was running by myself. And it just went bonkers. And then Reebok came on board, headhunted me to open CrossFit gyms. So I opened about 6 CrossFit gyms in the country over a 2-year period. And then did a lot of work with Reebok and sorts of brand activation work and building communities. And then came back to New Zealand in 2019 pretty much, and then just jumped back into trying to survive New Zealand mode more than anything else. And then, but along the lines, always been training, PTing here and there, online businesses and stuff like that as well. So it's always been the backbone of everything I've ever done has been fitness and training and health.
I love the origins in terms of where you started. The story was who you surround yourself with, the mates, those people, quite competitive, but it was the positive vibe. It was the winner's mindset. Even if I was last, I'm not going to give up. And I love that. And obviously you could see how that translated into your career and other aspects as well. I guess, you came at 2019. That was a good time because New Zealand, we went into lockdown in 2020. Yeah, bro. So that was a good time to come into New Zealand.
Oh man, it was
being sarcastic, but
yeah. It was those years of New Zealand. The first 3 years were the true test of every aspect of my entire life, including my relationships, my relationship with my wife. Everything was truly battle tested, and we came out better off for it. To be honest, I appreciate and I'm grateful for a lot of stuff that happened during that stage. Obviously, terrible times for many for many ways, but it sort of built this bond between my wife and I and our kids that is tight. Like the family unit became priority above all. We sort of built these values that I suppose were never really that clear, as a family unit, and what will never penetrate our unit, how tight we are. So, I mean, in hindsight, like as I look back, oh man, only grateful for a lot of things that happened, for sure. I mean, it was thankful and grateful, but it was not easy.
Well, I can attest to that as well, because I mean, the whole of New Zealand went through the lockdown, and I'm sure a lot of families learned and grew through that. And it's interesting that you say that you learned so much in that 3 years than you did in your entire life, right? That's crazy to know. Now you're a manager of Fitness Cartel, and also you help look after Flex Fitness here in Pukekohe. Yep. So you're still in the health industry, fitness industry, which is pretty cool. You gave us this awesome story at the beginning and how it's led to where you are today. What were some of the key things that you learned through your journey in South Korea, etc., even as an actor, that's really helped you in your role today in your business?
Mate, I mean, I've always been like an extremely optimistic person, like almost to the point where at times it's probably too optimistic, where you should be a bit more real. But that's how I've dealt and got through things, I suppose. So always finding the good, always looking for the sort of positive parts of that, and trying to find solutions so we can sort of figure these things out, and more of that sort of front end vibe. So, I opened these businesses in Korea, and a lot of that went really, really well. And then a lot of the business structure and how we did it obviously went really bad. And then so I had to go through this whole phase of trying to exit out of a company that had, lots of shareholders and millions of dollars invested, and had to sort of swallow pride and bail out of these sorts of things, but also keep a positive mindset around what people will think of what I made, but now I've gone. So now I'm the front man, but all of a sudden I'm out. And then all this, so all behind people's perceptions of what's happened and why, and just always stay super positive on it. I mean, my wife's a realist, which is good. We're a good balance, because dreaming and imagination is what gets us to where we want to go. That's what creates these futures of ourselves that we'll never really get to if you don't imagine or get quite into that sort of part of it. So I'm great at that, and it's always cool to have someone in your sort of field that can kind of help guide you along that journey a little bit. Keep it. I don't want to say realistic, because that's kind of you don't really want to be realistic, to be honest, when you're thinking about where you want to go. But someone that's in your corner to sort of ask some good questions.
I love that. Yeah. And I love that you mentioned the whole growth mindset. You've been here and there, but, some things didn't work out, but at least you move forward and you gain something. A lot of that is the lessons that you've learned that you can now use it and apply everywhere else, right? I want to go to the rugby passion that you had in your early days, because you just said, like, man, I had restructure here, surgery here, knee ops here. I was like, whoa, man, at a young age in your early 20s. Now that can be a big toll on a young person, especially when they're still trying to figure out what they want to do with their life. So tell us about that. I mean, that would have been mentally, emotionally hard for you. I'm sure there's a lot of our listeners who are tuning in right now who'll be like, man, I was there one time, or I'm going through that right now. How do I deal with that from a mental, emotional point of view? What can you talk to around that? Any advice?
Oh, man, like lots of advice, and probably mainly good advice from what not to do. Because at that stage, of what I was doing. I mean, I failed all school, so school was not really for me. I failed 5th, 6th, 7th form, didn't do any of it, but I was a good kid. My teachers really liked me, and I did school productions and things like that, and I played rugby. So, of course, stay in school, but just stay out of the way is pretty much what I was. No positive male role model in my life, so I really had to figure shit out by myself. With my brothers, so there was no guidance or questioning or challenging, and this will go to a lot of the chats we have around sort of the importance of that male role model in families, but I never had that. So I had a coddling kind of a mother who's like, do what you want, honey, have fun, whatever, which is, there's no lessons in that, so the lessons have to be learnt the hard way. So going through the whole rugby thing, my dream was to go to play rugby in Dunedin, no matter what, even though I would have to, I don't know, do what? Go to university when I'm 20. So I did all these things, got into massive student debt, failed uni for a few years until I kind of figured it out, but had to restructure and go to Christchurch to stay away. Dunedin was awesome, but a tough place to study for someone like me, a complete, just drinking all the time, partying. Rugby was my life, but it was my life more verbally rather than through taking action. I was sort of just bullshitting my way through it. I want to be the best, but my behaviors were completely opposite. That's not true. And then the injuries came, and because of the way I was raised and all the sort of things I went through, I had a real bad of self-sabotage, like massive self-sabotage. So if I started getting to a point of success in something, an injury to me was actually a positive, because it made me go, it's because I'm injured is why I didn't make that team, or why I can't play anymore. So I honestly would have a sense of relief if I blew my knee out. Obviously I'm kind of upset about it as well, but it gave me an escape to say, man, it's the knees the reason I had a shit season, man. Otherwise I would have been in the Highlanders, or otherwise I would have done these things. So I was really, at the time, no idea about that sort of behavior. It's the same behavior with relationships, with when things get really good, you just destroy them somehow. You make a lot of progress in this area, destroy them somehow. So the injuries and overcoming them, I suppose, were, there was a lot of injuries. My best year, I suppose, where I did feel like I had my body and everything put together was the year I did this, my head, my forehead. So that was probably the second game of the season, a head clash with a halfback, and just caved in my frontal sinuses. So no concussion. I played on the game, but then by the Wednesday, there was just a huge hole in my head. A gaping hole that required surgery, and even to that stage, the surgeons are like, we've got surgery tomorrow, and I said, Doc, can we do them at the end of the season? I'm having a great year. And the doctors are like, are you an idiot? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, your skull is fractured, like your skull smashed, we have to fix it. And I seriously was happy to look, I'll deal with that at the end of the season. And they go, impossible, we'll see you tomorrow. So that's how much respect I had for my body or anything like that as well. So there's all these wrestling these parts of obviously wanting to be what I think a lot of times what people expected you to be, but not really what I wanted to be. And so I was following that lead of, you should be this guy, you should be that guy. But it wasn't really what I wanted. But I played the game. And when you play the game, obviously my brain and my mind wasn't matching what everyone thought I should be and what my words were saying. Yeah, I agree, I'll do my best this year. But nothing was matching that. I was just full of shit, to be honest. And so getting through all that phase and, a lot of learnings through that phase, of course. But the injury sort of stuff is, even to this day, is just, everyone deals with setbacks and injuries, and I'm pretty good now, but it's more just always the focus on what you can do and not what you can't do. If you've got injuries and you're sort of trying to get through them, you don't just sit there and dwell on the fact your knee's injured. There's a million other things you can still do, right? So there's still focusing on moving forward, no matter what. It may not be as fast as normal, but it's still moving forward and not going backwards.
Yeah. Wow, man, that's crazy. Can I still play rugby? I want to finish the season and, with the fractures. Oh, my goodness.
I seriously would have finished the season.
Yeah.
Happily. And then the doctor, the main thing the surgeon said was, broken bone in your skull will put pressure on your frontal lobe, which can essentially change your personality.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I'm cool with that. That's how dumb I was. I said, yeah, I'm okay with that. He goes, Cody, no, you're not, mate. Like, seriously, you need a slap. Yeah. So I had surgery the next day and was out for the season.
Yeah. I think you mentioned something interesting that a lot of people kind of experience, and even me growing up, is this expectation that others have of you. Yeah. Like, this is who you should be. And that pressure can be quite intense because you're at a stage where you're still trying to figure out what you want to do in life, figure out who you are. And when you've got that working alongside people saying you should try this, you should be this, then it gets a bit confusing. But I think you kind of had to go through that to get to where you are today. As interesting as it might sound, you kind of had to go through that confusion, that pressure to kind of figure out, later on. So I want to talk about that. How did you go from that to now, like, this is exactly what I want to do? Like, I feel like fitness, health, doing all of this stuff in South Korea, CrossFit, and still being a manager of fitness gyms. Like, how did you know that was something you wanted to do and pursue?
Yeah, I sort of naturally fell into the whole leadership sort of thing, obviously from a young age, through sport, through, I worked in hospitality as a teenager in my hometown and was managing restaurants by about 16. So I've always had that ability to lead teams and sort of run them through on that side of things. And so the whole, opening my first business was just me anyway, right? So myself and my wife and just building from that. I learned heaps in those first couple of years. And then the company at one stage grew to, like I said, 6-7 businesses. We had a restaurant at one stage and about 150 staff. And I was the CEO of the entire company. So it wasn't really my vibe, to be honest, because you're sitting in an office every day away from the people. The reason why the business was so successful is because I was always with the people. And then all of a sudden you're in the back office where you're relying on everyone else to be that sort of appeal. So I learned a lot about myself in that way as well, like what I'm good at, what my strengths are, and then also finding the people to take over. The admin stuff is not really for me, so then I'll find people that are great at it so I can focus on what I'm good at. Just a lot of learnings through those phases, So now is always leading a team. I don't actually care what the business would be, to be honest. As long as people are involved, I'm gold. I've worked in lots of different areas, but managing people and looking after and developing them, because obviously good staff equals good results in the business. So I'm not really too worried about, performance is important, but obviously going straight back, number one point is how can I help that individual in every aspect of their life? Because in return, they're going to be awesome workers anyway. So that's sort of the way I look at it.
Yeah. So it sounds like you kind of figured out what you do enjoy, and that's being with people, you're helping people, and it didn't matter what business or industry, as long as you got to do something that was like that. Yeah. I think that's good advice for our audience as well. It's like, just don't really focus on a job or industry or business you want to work for. Just like, what do you enjoy doing? What do you enjoy doing? Yeah. And leading with that. So tell us about leadership, because 150 staff, CEO, and different industries, and now still being in a leadership role, that's pretty big. What are some key lessons that you've learned as a leader that's really helped you?
Yeah, I think I learn every day still. Like, I'm always learning about different ways to lead and how people are. But I think the most important thing I found out very quickly is that everyone is led and motivated and inspired in different ways. We're all not the same, right? And I actually figured this out as a CrossFit coach, because you're on a CrossFit floor, you've got 20 people in the gym. They are not the same humans. So you can't motivate and inspire every individual the same way, right? So, for example, I'll go up to one person and it's old Barry on the floor, he's doing push-ups, and I'm like, come on, Barry, let's go, man, and like yelling at him, right? Like, let's go, clap, 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 giving him all this firing up, and Barry just looks up to you like, freaking shut up, bro, like, seriously? And then you got an old mate across the road, and they love that, right? So some people love the real, so you got to, as a manager, as a leader, you've got to figure out how to connect with every single person individually. For me, I'd like a good whisper in the ear when I'm training, and I'd be like, Cody, is this how you're going to do it, mate? Seriously? That's enough for me. I don't need to be yelled at, some random shit, but a little whisper in the ear, mate, I'm go time. So, and most people are very combinations of all of these sorts of things. You know, some of them just want a high five. Some want to be left alone completely. So same thing in the work and in your team environment, everyone's just led in very, very different ways. So the moment I figure out their style, the way their, you know, obviously their goals within their life or their business, all these different things, then you can manage them much easier and obviously get the most out of them because you understand them as individuals. So that's probably the number one thing that I figured out pretty quick, and I think it's very important. Just individuals. It's a team, and we want to be inspired as a team, but there's always that one guy on the team like I was who's just full of shit, clipping the ticket, you know, like, and not necessarily involved because you haven't figured out what he individually wants to do or achieve just yet, you know, so super important.
Yeah, and I think it's an important skill for all leaders to have is like knowing the people, you know, knowing how to change and adapt your approach to different people because they're all different, like you said. And I always use this analogy of like, you've got to be like a DJ. I like watching DJs.
Yeah.
You can tell how successful or how good they are by the response they get from the audience or the, you know, people dancing. And if people are not dancing, it's because he's not playing the right music. So he's got to adjust and adapt. It's like, maybe I got to change the mood, got to change the music. And that's, I use that analogy with my teachers. Like, look, as a facilitator, when you're teaching students, they're all different. Even though they're in a group, they're all different. Be like a DJ. Listen and watch. Look at the body language. Then you know what to teach or how to change and adapt to suit the crowd. Right, I really love that. So let's talk about fitness and health because you're very passionate about this space. You've got your own business, even though you're a manager at Fitness Cartel. Yeah, look after Flex Fitness here in Pukekohe. I know that one of your philosophies or the things that you believe in is that fitness is more than just having a healthy and strong body. It's also about having a healthy and strong mind. You know, and having a health and strong, showing up for your family as well. It translates to every aspect of your life. So tell us about that philosophy.
Well, it's, you know, if we do have that one thing that we can all sort of do to help improve many aspects of our lives, we all do know having a healthier sort of relationship with training and nutrition is, there's so many things that can be benefited from that behavior, right? So it's sort of the first thing we should all be prescribed if we're starting to feel a bit down on ourselves, you know, mental health and things like that. It's proven, the studies show that, you know, being physically fit or active, all these things will literally change the way your mind works, right? So you know, there's obviously other areas we need to focus on, but the training part of it just builds that resilience that, like, I don't think it's, the way I look at it now, especially these days, is that what you do, I'm not really that impressed by anymore by anybody. I don't really care what you're doing for your training. I'm not really, it's cool and cool. Oh yeah, I PR'd yesterday, bro. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I actually don't. But the fact that you're training, the fact that you're doing something every single day, the fact that you're getting out of bed and you're committing to something, that's the most important thing, I think, right? And it needs to become, once it becomes your lifestyle and you realize that I'm doing this until the day I die, then it becomes actually something super simple and easy to do, easy to achieve. It's that we put this big focus on it, that it's such a big, scary, important, stressful thing, but it's actually not at all. It's because of our minds around it, our mindsets around it. So we haven't really programmed ourselves correctly to know that this is just what I do. If I have a week off, if I travel and don't train for a whole week, I don't care about that either. I don't care. I don't get upset with myself. I don't worry. I just train as soon as it won't happen very often, but I just train again as soon as I can. I don't have any, I'm not worried about it. There's no stress around it. It's just got to do it, you know? So it's definitely been something that's helped me get through my whole life. You know, it's amazing. I love it. I've changed all different training styles. I've done whatever there is, but I don't really put too much focus these days so much on what I do in the gym so much. It's just more that it's kind of a small part of what we do. You know, it's important and it's massive, but it's just a little tick of the box for me these days. And I want to create that with people I work with, because then it becomes something. It's not a massive mountain. It's just something super simple. And we just redefine what that looks like for every individual, because it's all different. You know, a housewife or a mother with a newborn baby, her training, it's not like, did you get to the gym today? It's actually not that. It's like, well, let's decipher what training is for you at the moment. And it could be a 10-minute walk with the stroller. Beautiful. That's your training. Did you train today? Doesn't mean did you go to the gym. Like, most of us don't even need to go to the gym, right? It's like, what did you do? Perfect. Awesome. You know, as long as you're just doing what's, you know, your type of training for the current place you're in, gold. But it's, mentally, as we all know, it's just helps. You know, you're not feeling up to speed. Put your shoes on and go for a walk in the sun on the beach. I guarantee it changes everything about it. You know, every time. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it reminds me of this saying from Tony Robbins. You know Tony Robbins, eh?
Yeah.
And he says, change your physiology to change your psychology.
Yeah, that's right.
He says it's your body, it's your movement, get active, change your posture, and eventually your mind will adapt to suit that.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm hunched over like this, how can I be confident if I'm like this?
Yeah.
Or like this.
And you think about that. I thought a lot about that, about people and cell phones, right? And how we walk and how we... So straight away, obviously, you're in this position of being slouching and down, and you're looking like this all day. People are walking around like this all day, right? So you're. I mean, have you ever got that person? Okay, I want you to stop for a second. I want you to stand tall, put your chest up, your chin up. We're just gonna walk down the street, admiring the world. They change instantly, and we do it to ourselves, right? It's like, what am I doing? Put it away. Chest up, big deep breaths, looking at the world, which no one does anymore. Like, we don't look around as we walk. We're either head down. Someone walks past you, head down. You know, we avoid everyone and everything, and it's but you're right, it's that whole like motion creates emotion, right? Like, get up, and if someone can slap you out of it, you know, get off your chairs, man, like shake it out. Like, it's cool, and it's like Tony said, it's like an instant, right? We can change the way we feel instantly, but you've just got to snap out of what you're currently doing and just move a little bit. It's gold.
What's some simple things that we could embed into our day-to-day schedule? A lot of people are like, you know, come up with I'm working, I'm busy, I've got a family, I've got this and that. How do I find time to fit in, like, fitness, things to help improve my mindset, things to help me build emotional resilience? Like, you know, it can seem overwhelming, a lot of things to do. Well, you know, what's some simple things or advice that we could do there?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's lots of these little habits and things we can start instilling into our lives. And of course, over time, a habit, it might stick, it may not. But I'm more inclined these days to really fine tune into the reasons behind it, right? So the moment I understand why you want to do all these things is the moment we can really attach some real purpose to what you're doing. And that means that everything, no matter what, there's a non-negotiable. Now, I get home at midnight and I haven't done what I've promised myself I will do. You just do it, right? And we do it if someone's expecting us to do it, but we don't trust ourselves, and we let ourselves down every single day, right? But it's harder to let other people down. So we want to narrow it right down. Like, what is the deal behind this? So I had a conversation with a dad I coached online a few years back, and it's one of my, I say, favorite stories, but it's not really, but it's a really impactful story. And it's the dad who's saying, look, you know, I'm at the swimming pool, and I'm the dad on the side of the pool because I'm overweight, I'm not confident in myself, and my kids are playing with someone else's dad. And just watching from the sideline, you know what I mean? And so the hurt in his voice and everything about that was like super impactful, right? So he's obviously, now I've got a picture of how he feels about that situation. Like, those kids, my kids are laughing and they're happy with someone else's dad because I've chosen to sit over here. Not about what he looks like, because in all honesty, the kids don't care. If you're in the pool, if you're out of shape or in shape, they do not care. They are loving that you're in the pool. So step one's just confidence, right? Knowing, bro, get in the pool, mate. Like, no one cares, and your kids will love you. So having that behind the purpose of what this guy wanted to achieve in his life means that all those habits become very simple, because now we're going to reprogram them that this is where you are, this is where you want to be. In order to get there, you have to do these behaviors. And if we need to, we'll just pull you straight back to that story. Remember how it felt when you said you couldn't swim with your kids, when you were watching from the sideline. remember how that felt. Remember how it will feel 1 year down the track when we work together and get this sorted, and you'll be in that pool with those kids, or and you'll get your goals. Like, are you going to get up and do what you said you were going to do? Guaranteed. No chance he's going to fail that. But you've got to be able to pull it to something way stronger than just, I'm going to ice bath today. Well, why? Because over time, we all do it, right? We bounce back. We do 10 weeks. I mean, 75 Hard's a great example. It's awesome, I've ran programs very similar to that for years, even before he did. He could have copied me, to be honest. But what's happening is that there's a clear point on it, which is good for goal setting, but it's also terrible for people who can't commit for long periods of time, because all they're doing is 75, and day 76, what does everyone do? They celebrate. Let's get drunk. I finished. Let's eat whatever I want. And don't worry though, after a week, I'll get back on the program again. I've heard this 4 million times. And because they haven't actually changed who they are at all, they've slapped on a bit of makeup, they've changed a couple of plans, they've become someone different temporarily, and they've told the world every day, by the way, day 76, they are back to who they were, because they never did the actual work of understanding the long-term change that they want to get and how they're going to get it, and rewiring themselves completely to become that person. So we see it all the time, and I'm sort of guilty of it a little bit, in the way that I'll have a client that I've coached years ago and they'll come back. And so these days, this is something that I'm really aware of, and it's kind of like, cool, they want to come back. But then I'm like, well, actually, maybe I haven't done what I should have done at that point when I worked with this person, because obviously now I'm guilty of that as well, putting you through a program, helping you with all these things, but not truly working on what's inside to change who you are, to become the person you want to be. So my whole approach is very, very different these days. That's the foundation, is, getting deep within the paradigm of who we are. Who are you? What behaviors do you not like about yourself? What don't you like? And then obviously the plan is the opposite, and then we work towards that with all the tools and habits around that. But that's not what's going to change us. It's actually a whole lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I love your answer. I love your answer to my question. How can people apply, into their busy schedule? You went right back to the why. Yeah. And the example of the father, that's pretty deep, and that's pretty vulnerable.
It gets me too, mate. That will help.
Yeah, I felt that one.
Yeah.
But it's going back to, it's not just finding a pain, but finding a purpose. I want to do it for my kids. I want to have more time. I want to have more confidence. I want that good feeling that I get having, it's not about having the abs. It's not about this and that. It's about my family. It's about having confidence out in public. So that's, and you'll figure out the how.
Yes.
If you know the why,
100%.
You'll figure out the how. And I really love that. And hey, look, I've been guilty of the challenges every now and then, and I've gotten to finally a stage where it's like, it's not about doing the challenge and resetting and starting again. It's about lifestyle.
Yes.
It's just making it every day. It's just part of who you are and part of your life.
Yeah.
Right? Changing that. Becoming a father sounds like you shared this journey, and then when you had your own family, you got married, you got 2 kids. It's really changed you as a person, and it sounded like when you shared that, it's added a lot more meaning and purpose behind you as a person, your life. Tell us a story about how you met your wife, and then how becoming a father and a husband has really changed who you are.
Yeah. Well, it's massive. And I suppose if we do go back to the whole being raised without a positive male role model in the home is like a big part of how this all worked, because there was no teaching how to be a man, right? So we remain boys. If you don't transition to manhood through some way, shape or form, you remain boys. You're a boy in a man's body until the day you change. And it could be 50, 60, 70. It could be till the day you die. And these certain clear behaviors that go with that. But for me, like I said, I had really great relationships through university, and I traveled to Korea with a partner at the time, and all awesome people. None of them, amazing people, right? So it was all about me, right? So again, it gets too far along, you self-sabotage, you get rid of that. So for some reason, when I met my wife, which was probably, I think it was 2005, we're getting close. No, it wasn't that. It's close to 20 years anyway.
Better get it right. She might listen to
this. We always get confused about how long it feels like forever. But so it's been a while now. We're close to 20 years we've been together. And for some reason, I think it was because my wife's Korean. They have sort of different values and styles that things are done in Korea, which I think has helped shape me a lot about the role of a man and the role of a wife and how it's happened for us, which I really love. And so she just expected way more from me and didn't let me get away with anything, I suppose, which was the first time I've really encountered that, if you know what I mean. So she just sort of helped shape me quite quickly. I mean, the boy behavior did stay for quite a few years, and the partying and the drinking, those sorts of things where, at one stage I remember we're driving home from going out, and at a set of traffic lights, I literally jumped out of the car and went back to the club and just left her in the car to go home by herself. And I just went there by myself and just to drink, and that was the kind of behaviors. That's boy behavior. There's no kids at this stage, right? But obviously, they're the sort of things that she had to deal with, and she just wouldn't settle for any of that, which helped, obviously fast track stuff. So definitely a boy in a man's body for many, many years. And so when my son was born in 2012, there was a big wake up call there, of course, which I think is for many of us. So there's obviously these big changes in our lives that help shift the paradigm, that changes us. It's either a big event or it's repetition. So for me, that was the big event that helped shape parts of it quite quickly. And so, just had to start stepping up. I mean, we had opened our first CrossFit gym at that stage. I think very close to then. I'd partnered with Reebok. So for the next 2 years, I just was business, going to America a lot, building all these businesses and gyms and hiring people and doing this stuff. And he was there with my wife every step of the way. It was amazing, right? But there's still a lot of inkling of boy behavior going on, right? So it wasn't fully signed and sealed. And I don't really think it sort of was, because the thing is, we're not sitting down like we sort of mentioned before and really understanding ourselves. We don't do that. No one really questions us and goes, who are you? Not the fucking surface level bullshit. Who actually are you? Like, tell us about it. And you dive quite deep into it. And it's very revealing and very scary for a lot of people, especially men, because we like to hide that stuff, right? Like, I've got it all together. Really deep inside we know I've got nothing together. I'm just trying to wing my way through all this. So through that whole phase, I think then my daughter was born about 4 years later. So starting to really understand what's going on in my world and where I want it to go. And I actually jumped onto like a men's mastermind program. That was a global one, like a guy on Facebook just connected with me. This would have been 7-8 years ago now, but he was just like the man. And so I jumped in with about 10 men from all over, mostly America and myself. And we just did lots of deep work, lots of really good stuff, like really, really deep work. Had to sort of get into things and figure out who we were and build units around it. So it was probably a 12-week program, but that was another really helping phase. But the actual coming to New Zealand, I suppose, was the next level of it. Because like I said, I'd never been taught how to put values into our families or beliefs or really have solid foundations to which we make decisions and base our lives off. And that whole time helped solidify all that, and really fix all that up. So that was the real help to sort of grow up a little bit. Excuse me, get some water. Yeah. And that was awesome, because that's what was needed, and it's every single day now. So it's very intentional. Like I journal the things I want to be and the things I don't want to be, and every single day, relentlessly, just like training. Because, like I said, I'm not going to change through saying it. I've got to change through repeating behaviors every single day until forever, even when they stick. So training for me is, that's a behavior, and now it's been repeated so much that it's who I am, right? So it's one way to do it, but I need to know who I'm not. And so what kind of dad do I want to be? And I'll make decisions around that. If my son behaves a certain way or there's something to do, I have to first stop, think. It's that whole react response. Like, how do I want to respond to the situation? Like, how would the man I want to be respond to the situation? And so then you can formulate a proper response, So, it's an ongoing process, but definitely very important for all of us.
Yeah,
sure.
Have a drink, brother. Wow.
I suppose the thing, just on that one real quick, was the one thing that really got me, I suppose, about being a dad and a husband and a man in this world, which is, there's lots to talk about on that side of it, but that whole idea of like, and I talk about this a lot, but you're at the pearly gates and your days are done, and they bring out Cody, the man that I could have been if I had have reached my full level of what, who I wanted to be, right? And so I suppose your goal is if you get to that stage and you look at that guy and you're like looking in the mirror, then you've done really well. If you look at that guy and he's nothing like you at all and he's this completely different human in a positive sense, then that's like your worst nightmare, I believe. That drives me, because if and that's a reality as well. Even though I didn't achieve that reality, it's still a reality that Cody over there, that dude is the man. Like, I could have been that guy just by sticking to my word, doing the things I said I was going to be, having clear objectives, following all these things we've talked about. And the only reason I'm not that guy is because of the choices I've made. Like, I'm fully responsible for all of that. So that guides me every single day. I just think that's like your worst nightmare, is to meet the person you could have been. And the reason you didn't reach there was all on you, because it always is all on us. There's no other reason.
Yeah, I love that. That's pretty deep. Knowing who you are and knowing who you're not.
Yes.
Some people just focus on knowing who you are or who you want to be.
Yes.
But not the other side of the coin. Why is it important to do both?
Well, because, great question. It's because every single day you can catch yourself, right? You can catch those behaviors, the way you're thinking. Whereas when you're always thinking positive, it doesn't really, you might even skip over the other things. So it's not a thing. So I think just as powerful, and I'll use drinking for an example, because I quit drinking. So as a big drinker, and even in New Zealand, man, my drinking got worse when I first came back here. I mean, it's the New Zealand diet of beer, bread and butter, which is three things I never really touched when I lived in Asia. And I put on about 16 kilos in about 3 months. And then obviously the stress and everything else, beers just became a part of my life for a long time. So with the alcohol one, so, you always hear these people talk, and it's really interesting where someone will say, hey, would you like a beer? And you go, oh, I'm not drinking at the moment. What does at the moment mean? And that's a window, right? That's a window. I'm not drinking for 75 days. Right, again, a window. So there's all these things that are just leaving windows open for you to go straight back to where you were and who you were, right? So you've got to be able to catch yourself and say, if someone says, Cody, would you like a drink? And I said, I don't drink. Maybe I'm doing a 100-day program. No one needs to know, but what needs to happen in my world is like, I don't drink. That's as strong as that. Hey, Cody, would you like some chocolate? If I'm trying to cut down on those, so I don't eat chocolate, thank you. Right, you've got to be and it's actually not about them hearing it, it's about you hearing it yourself over, like I said, repetition, over and over and over and over and over. And so when those behaviors start to come towards you, you bounce it off straight away with your talk. Not for me, thank you. And then obviously at the start for a lot, there will still be mistakes, right? There will still be mistakes, but knowing what that is, it will veer us off. The compass is pointing north, and we're sort of bouncing off this way a little bit. You course correct instantly, right? So you catch yourself thinking about it, or eating it, or drinking it, and we just go bang straight back to target. The longer we wait, the harder it is to recalibrate, and that's why people will fail their goals on a Tuesday and not start again until Monday or ever. That's long, and now it's harder again versus just course correct, right? So we succeed through the failing. Every failure puts us back on target. We don't get there through positives and through winning, to be honest. It's through losing course correction, like a rocket ship going to the moon. When it gets off target, it just goes back on target every single time.
I really like that. I like that. I can see why it's so important and how it can be useful. It's a good tool for understanding when upon reflection, after you've done something, especially a mistake, it's like, hey, that's the person I don't want to be.
That's right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What would a person that I want to be do in the situation? Yeah. And it's good for decision making, right? Absolutely, so like you saying, course correction. I love that. So I want to touch back before we move on to the work that you're doing with fathers, because that's a pretty important one. I really want to touch on that on the podcast, is going back to the mastermind that you did with all the other men from around the world. What are some of the things that you learned from that's been useful?
Massive ones. Obviously, it brought in having good comms with men, like opening up a community where you talk and you share with each other. Because obviously it's sort of, the whole vulnerability thing. I mean, that's really cool, but I do think that can go to an extreme as well for some situations that I've actually been in, where it becomes this vulnerability of being a victim to everything, where I don't think men are really wired that way. It's cool to be vulnerable, but I think for us, we like being vulnerable, then coming up with a game plan on how to change ourselves, right? Where this wasn't one of those masterminds, but I have been in groups before where every single week you showed up, it was almost like a pity party, and I don't think that's the way to do it for men. Maybe that group, they could do that, but most of us never went back to that one. Whereas, excuse me. So in this one here, there was a couple of really impactful things. Number one was telling your life story, like in detail. So we had to have a session where one of us would present, and the life story in detail is awesome. I mean, this is awesome in so many ways, right? This is one tool to visualize your future, is to go through it and outline your dream day in extreme detail. Where do you live? What are you wearing? What are you eating? How's the scenery? I don't know if you've done that activity before, but it's awesome and gives you goosebumps every time. But this one here for me, I'd shared stories about my life all the time, right? I mean, my father passed away when I was 8. He was a fisherman and the boat capsized and he never came back. And that's where my extreme optimism comes from, because I thought he was on an island eating fish and growing a big beard. So there's no closure for an 8-year-old. So this is quite bad, right? But anyway, but I've told those stories. I mean, I'd met people, I'm an adult, and these have been years. People say, what do your dad do? And I had to share, right? But I had to tell this story in detail, and I'd never done that before. So I wanted this story to be, number one, entertaining and inspiring, and I wanted it to be that the other guys could all connect to it in some way. So I did my best to tell it in detail, and I couldn't tell the story. When I got to year 8, I couldn't even talk. So all this like unresolved trauma or like processing or just came into effect, and I couldn't even finish what I was trying to say. It was unreal, but very eye-opening. And I suppose that's what we're saying about who you truly are and where you are. Like when you do dive deep into those things, it's like tearing off a Band-Aid of that maybe you've been covering up for many, many years. And you've just got to open it up. And those spaces are so important for that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I did get through it and told that story. And I made it sort of a mission to tell that story in more detail more times, whether it was videoing myself, whether it was to another group of men that we worked with, because I think that was the only true way I could really process that situation at the time, was to share it, make it real, tell the story, and then it gets easier and easier and easier, as opposed to just swallowing it up and saying, I'm never going to go back there again. Like closing the door, Band-Aid on, I'll deal with that another time, right? So that men's group was what started that whole journey. And the next journey they started, well, another thing that was quite interesting is the whole, like I said, the Cody I could have been. It's the practice of writing your own eulogy and then reading it out. So you're at a cemetery and you read out that eulogy that you would have presented to yourself when you die. That's pretty full on as well, right? So it's another way of really, quite quickly, you either think you've had a fulfilling life in some areas, in other areas not so much. So another really good eye-opener, I think, to sort of think, what would people say about you? What would you say about you in your life? And is it where you want it to be or not? And if it's not, hey man, this is your second chance. This is your time to change that. So that was pretty revealing, eh?
Wow. Sounded like you gained a lot, and obviously, it's transformed you as a person. I can hear it in your voice. You sound excited when you're talking about these things that you're learning. And I love that. That's pretty deep, because you're right. We all have to accept that we're all going to end up in a coffin one day, right? But it's like, what do you want to be remembered for? What's the legacy? Yeah. So it can be quite hard for people to face that. We're like, nah, I don't want to worry about that. I don't want to think about death,
Yeah.
But that should be a motivation.
Yeah.
All right. That's pretty deep. It's pretty cool just sitting here listening to your transformation, hearing your stories, the things you've learned, the experience, and then where you are today. And now you've trained thousands of clients. Right, so I'm sitting here with a guy who's got a wealth of experience, worked with a lot of people. Now you're doing a lot of work with men. Yeah, you almost kind of got a niche here, right? Where you're focused on fathers. Tell us about the work that you're doing with fathers, and I guess some of the things that you're doing to help them.
Yeah. I mean, it's always been something, especially. I mean, I suppose that mastermind many years ago definitely helped facilitate that a little bit. Not having a positive male role model in your life means you actually look at men differently as well. You don't have that. It's you have a few coaches that might have impacted your life a little bit. You have all these different things. So I think there there are massive holes in society and what men get up to and how we are and how we look after each other and you know there's so many aspects to it, and I think having a son was obviously a big eye opener, and now he's 12, so he's starting to become a young man and he's quite independent. And I you know, it always put me over that I thought, you know, how many kids, number one, are being raised like I was, you know, and you could have a father who's present, doesn't mean he's doing the work when he's there though, right? He might live with, so there's all these misguided men, and so many issues that happen in society often are potentially because of men, like a relationship, for example. I don't know, it's just a bit of an observation, but I do feel like New Zealand, there's a lot of couples that don't last very long in New Zealand. I think it's since I've been back here, it's one thing I've figured out pretty quick, and it's any second person I meet, they're having their kids 1 week because their ex-partner's having them the next. It just seems very common. And then when you say you've been married for almost 20 years, you almost get looked at like a weirdo. It's like, what the hell, with the same person? So this all drills back to men again, right? It drills back to the way we've been raised. It drills back to the way we carry ourselves. I feel like men have been kind of pushed to be people pleasers in a way, and to be like, what do you want, darling? Okay, cool. And just be like pushovers. And I think, I mean, from my understanding, I feel like that's what a lot of women think they want until they get it, and then they realize, I don't want that. Like, I want a man who stands proud, that's got, that knows what he wants, and he's very, the word masculine's been very outlawed these days, I suppose, in many ways, but it shouldn't be. I mean, it's obviously very important, but I think it's sort of, everyone's been changed, and I feel like our teenagers are different. I feel like the way that our kids are, there's a lot of issues, I think, stem from men who aren't standing up, and they don't have the values. I never did it, but obviously when someone comes to date my daughter, that boy will be in my living room sitting on the sofa talking to me a lot more than what he probably thinks he will be, because I need to understand him, trust him, and all the, and build him to be a stand-up gentleman or a man that can look you in the eye and shake your hand and obviously have those really core important values that I think we've lost along the way. So there's a lot of men out there just low confidence. I don't think they are really firing on the ways they could be. I think they're miserable, and because of that, their wives are miserable, and their kids are being sort of shoved to the side. It's just kind of everywhere. So I think, my plan is to build communities around that. Obviously, I work one-on-one with men, but and there's lots of areas to work on. But I think the next stage for sure is obviously workshops and seminars and communities where we're all together and we're sweating and bleeding and crying together and talking and helping each other and lifting each other up as well. Because New Zealand it's a tough place if you want to be somebody. People are not really keen to help you.
Why?
They want to, or they might help you, but first they're going to tell you that, the tall poppy, this whole thing that New Zealand has it's pretty crazy. And you think about it, I'll go back to my rugby days, in my sort of first few years, I wanted to be an All Black, right? But guess how many people I would have told that to? Zero. Not a single person. I don't even know if I would have said it to myself, because the moment you speak like that, you just get kicked to the ground, right? Oh, you show off guy. Oh, what a loser. You'll never be that. You'll never be this, right? And that's just the way Kiwis are. As soon as it's just, I mean, we all know it. It gets talked about all the time. And then you compare it to, say, a lot of the America culture and their sport teams and what they do with each other and how they lift each other up all the time. They're always, that's very different. And I think that if you were to be in a group of men who all want to be somebody and they've got people around them that are there to lift them up every single day, to help guide you, and because confidence is the key. Attitude and confidence, right? So if you've got the right attitude and you're confident, you'll achieve absolutely everything. But you can't really be confident inwardly and keep it a secret and not tell anyone what you want to do, because the doors won't open. As soon as you say, hey, look, guys, I want to be an All Black. Even though you're afraid to say it, there are people in that room who will go, I got you, bro. I've got you. I'm going to get you a coach. I'm going to get you with this guy. Like, they will activate and they will help you, but everyone's been buried so much they're not willing to take that risk, right? And say that, I want to be a millionaire. I want to own all these properties. And, especially when you're really young, similar to my age, it's probably not so bad. You don't really care anymore anyway. You're not really worried about other people. But as a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, you're going to be a bit more quiet about it, versus let's just, what do you need? How can we help? Let's go.
It's interesting that you mentioned it. It's there's a lot of weight behind what you say because you've lived in different parts of the world, and then coming back to New Zealand, you can kind of compare and see the difference. So I do take what you say with weight, but you also mentioned around, and I agree with you. There's a lot of changes that I've seen, especially. I wouldn't say I feel like there's an attack on men, but there's a lot of pressure I've seen over the years that's been put on men. You're the reason this is not happening. You're the reason why there's problems. You're the reason why this and that and that. Toxic masculinity is poisonous. Like just, that's all I hear. And that's been the message I've seen on social media, content. And then and the correlation between the impact that it's had on men. And I hear a lot of issues around. But then again, I've seen what you're doing, a lot of that stuff coming through. There's a lot of people in communities who are like, we need to support men's mental health, Movember, sorry, and all of this, right? But yeah, I've seen those changes. Why do you think those things are happening? And I guess what's changed?
I think because obviously dads will, so women and mothers will raise our babies to be kids, and especially boys. I mean, we're talking with regards to the boys. Dads raise your boys to men. The wives do not. Mums do not. And I mean, I was raised by one, and she definitely did not. Right. So that, because although you think you might have the tools to do so, you do not. You know. So mums are amazing, and they have their roles just like dads do. In their upbringing, mums coddle kids. They coddle us. Right. They make us feel safe and loved and where dads teach lessons. So, you know, it never happened with me, but obviously with a lot of work I do and the study I've done on it, you know, when a kid does something wrong, guess who they're going to tell first? Mum. Because mum will say, it's okay, honey, it's all right, we love you, don't worry about it. Then at some stage, they'll go to dad. Because dad means not necessarily punishment, but it means lessons. It means a lecture. It means, how could we do this better? This is how we shape ourselves to be upstanding men. But that's become absent in some way, shape or form, where there isn't that person to teach the lessons. So then we make the mistakes over and over and over and over and over again. And so that's sort of from a very, very young age. And whether it's work, everyone's so focused on needing to make money to survive. So everyone's a lot less present than they used to be in the older days when everyone was always around. But now it's sort of, you know, everyone's working, everyone's busy trying to make ends meet. The kids are being raised by either after school care or by themselves. You know, when they're old enough as well, they could be just by themselves. So we're sort of missing on those lessons and that guidance. You know, it even goes for our daughters. You know, our daughters can we want to raise our daughters, well, I do, so that she can see what it's like to be a stand-up man of values and love, right? So that she knows that's the kind of man I want to have. And if he's sort of veers off, she can have something to sort of judge that on. And because in the real world, she can be prepared by her dad if something goes wrong or she's in danger or what's going on. Being a soft, kind of caring girl, which she might be raised by her mother to be, she's got that instinct to do the next stage if she needs to, right? So that's the importance of men raising the right to raise our girls as well. So I just think it's there's just not as many opportunities anymore for that. And everyone's, I think we just forget that we think mums run the house or run the kids and dad's just going to make the money and do whatever, for example, where there's the role of what we need to do is far more sort of intentional behind it, so that's really the lessons in the chat. Boys don't speak as much, so we have to create these environments for when they will, which is normally, I don't know, mowing the lawn, doing the gardening or washing some dishes, or it's mundane activities. So if you struggle picking your kid up from school and having them in the front seat and saying, how was your day? The answer is always going to be good. Like, they're not going to chat, right? I mean, some people's kids might. Good on you. That's awesome. And some days they do. But when my daughter or son speaks the most is when we're normally doing drawing. I'll set up drawing or arts and crafts with my daughter. That's when she won't stop. She just tells you everything about the world, right? She loves it. My son used to be going for runs and he'd be on his push bike beside me, and you'll just be peaceful, don't ask questions, and sooner or later you go, hey, Dad, and then there's a question or whatever, right? So super intentional. We've got to plan those platforms. Otherwise we'll never get it out of them. And it's not when we're ready, it's when they're ready, So,
Yeah.
Lots of aspects, yeah.
Yeah, creating those opportunities for that connection to happen. And I like the community aspect of it. And coming back to the values of fathers, and I like that you've brought your daughter. I'm a father. I've got 3 kids. I've got 1 girl and 2 boys. My oldest will turn 8 soon. That's my daughter. And I love that you use your children as an example, especially your daughter. Like, you know, the person that you want her to marry, you're going to sit there, you're going to know who he is. And what if I ask you this question? What would be the ideal person that you would want your daughter to marry? What would that person or that man have? What values, etc.?
Man, like, to be respectful, to be honest, to be a stand-up guy like that seriously takes accountability. I think someone who is open. I think if they were to turn up to my door and say, "Hello, Mr. Hunter," like, I think traditional ways of respect are extremely powerful. You know, I mean, you hear all these stories and ways that, you know, as soon as my daughter has a boyfriend, whether it's you know, when they're quite young or whatnot, but I'm going to know that kid. I'm going to know everything about him, because it's not necessarily about him per se, but if they're out doing something together, he's going to help protect her, right? And so it's my job. It's still my job and my responsibility through him to make sure he understands that, hey, mate, this is what, you know, I'm not a mean guy. I'm not coming from a perspective of, or else I'm going to smash you or whatever. Not like that at all. It's more coaching him and talking to him and understanding, hey, look, when you're with my daughter out in public and things that happen, you are responsible for her. Like, she's responsible for herself, but I'm giving you the charge of now looking after her because I'm not there. And I need you to understand what's going to happen. So, because that's growing him to be the kind of man that I think he needs to be, whether he might already be that man. But also gives me confidence to know that she's looked after and she's safe. If they go to a party and he's freaking not even there and, you know, things get out of hand, like, it's, mate, you know, that won't happen ever again because you can't trust that. So I just think, you know, the accountability, honesty, integrity, all those key factors, but it's the stand-up guy that's willing to talk. And, you know, like, I wasn't, to be honest, that was not me when I was a teenager. I wasn't knocking on doors and meeting my girlfriend's dads and shaking hands, and because I was never ever taught anything like that. So that's basically the opposite of what I was, I suppose.
It's taken me back to a memory, and I like that. Me and my wife were just dating at the time, but we were engaged. But I'll never forget what my father-in-law said, and it's always stuck with me. He says, "I know." He goes, "Yes, I feel right about this. I know he will look after my daughter."
Yeah.
You know, just hearing that is like, I trust this guy.
Yeah.
I know this guy will take care of my princess.
Yeah.
Like, that meant a lot to me, hearing that. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Is I promise I'll look after her.
So good, eh?
Yeah.
And he made it in a really cool way, but made you super aware, like that. It's like that trust, eh? Like, it's so good, man. And you know that it's either, it needs to be said, and I think it's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. And you know, talking about the fathers, you know, what are some common challenges that you've seen with the clients that you've worked with? And I guess, you know, what is the starting point? How do you move them from where they are to the next step? Because like you said, there's a lot of men who are quiet. They're not open about how they really feel. But I know they're going through a lot of challenges. Yeah,
big time. I mean, and we'll mask things up in different ways, and we'll use behaviors to kind of hide how we truly feel. And you know, but again, it's going straight back to sort of that whole audit of who we are today, you know, like, to a T, like your behaviors. It's really cool to start with your current behaviors. It's a really good benchmark. You know, how do you spend your weekends? Oh, I'm playing golf for most of my Sunday, and then Saturday nights I'm out with the boys having beers. But you've got kids, right? You've married, right? Is this how you want to, is this who you are? Like, because this is it's sort of a New Zealand thing too, eh? There's always about, you know, the beers and the boating and the golf with the boys, but you're at work all week, and then you're with the boys all weekend. So are you trying to escape something, or are you not? Like, there's so much to that. And I think it's obviously helping guide the questions and understanding behind, you know, some people maybe they love that, whether, you know, they'll say they do or not. But then you sort of expose the truth behind where they really are and where they want to be. And then you've got to really just drill down on understanding the men, right? Like, maybe maybe they haven't been intimate with their wives for months and months and months on end. Maybe they haven't even looked at their wives in the eye. They live together. They're just co-parenting, but they live in the same home. Like these relationships are all, and not willing to repair them, or just sitting back because there's no confidence anymore to actually step up and say, hey, look, we need to sort this out. Because most men will wait for the wives to take the lead, which is why wives get so upset about men not doing things. And why do I have to always nag you? Why am I always nagging you to do shit? You like it because now she's the mother trying to coach another kid, because you essentially are another child. You know what I mean? We've all been there, right? But it's like, so the behavior, you're behaving like a child, and then it makes you curl up in a ball even more, because you don't want to admit, yeah, I'm a child, which is because we don't want to admit that, but we kind of deep down know that she's right. This is my experience anyway. And so you've got to really be exposed to this stuff. And that's why men to men in groups, coming from a perspective of another man, helping you understand that, hey, mate, she's actually right. She doesn't want you to be laying, like spending weekends. She may not say it because she respects and loves you and she wants you to be happy, but she's not into it. And you know that, but you're too busy escaping somehow. I think if you're married with kids and you're at a nightclub after 10 p.m. at night, mate, there's issues there. And if you're getting in the dog box for the next few days, mate, you're lucky that's all you're getting in my opinion, right? So these are things that I probably would have thought were quite cool back when I was a boy in a man's body. I would have been one of those kind of guys, possibly. So you sort of understand. But now when you're out of it and you're sort of looking at it, you go, mate, do you really think that behavior is the right behavior to have a strong, powerful relationship with your wife and your children? So we need each other to, to hold each other accountable to that. And for this year, my mission is to be very upfront with friends and those around me and catch all the terrible chat, the excuses, the behaviors, and just hold each other accountable. And I'd expect the same in return, because that's the only way we're going to truly like change and just improve ourselves, is to be like holding ourselves accountable. And each other is going to be massively powerful. So
we're drawing close to the end of our podcast, and it's been so cool to navigate different aspects of your life and your story and kind of dissect some cool lessons around it. I do want to probe a little bit further around the father's relationship, or the husband and the wife, because I'm sure you've encountered that quite a bit. And that relationship is important for the family. Yeah. And obviously, like you've talked about it, it translates into success in business, success in other aspects of your life, right? So let's say a man or a father or husband has issues with the wife. They haven't been intimate for a while. Arguments, this and that, disconnection. Where's the next step? What's the first step to start moving towards the right direction?
Yeah, I think looking inside is always step number one. So not trying to sit there and go, what's everything she's doing wrong? Because that's where we'll all go first, and that's where she will go as well. Because when you start pinning it down, from experience, this is why this is important, but you actually come really close to understand, no wonder. You sort of start to think, now you look back, but at the time you sort of think, no wonder that's how she was acting, or that's why she was behaving that way. Why wouldn't she be? Because we're trying to, at the time, we take it all personal, which is, in this situation, you probably have to. But her behaviors and the way she speaks, everything that's going on, we're taking it so personal that it just puts up barriers, and we're not willing to accept the fact that she might be right. So the only way to really start that is to look deep inside and be like, what have I been doing? How have I been behaving? What have I been saying? Have I been sticking to my word? Because that's the biggest thing, is that we don't trust ourselves and we let ourselves down. And in return, those around us see that. And if you've told your wife that you're going to change and do these things over and over and over, and it's been 15 years of it and it's never actually happened, sooner or later, it's going to get bad. If it's probably already got bad, but someone's going to have to do something, right? Which is looking inside, right? So then that's the whole becoming, changing ourselves through whatever behaviors. But once you look inside and see where those issues are and what's going on, and what am I responsible for? What am I accountable for in this whole situation? Nothing to do with her at all, but for me. What game have I played in all this? You know, am I just the victim who's been perfect? Have I been the perfect dad, perfect husband, and she's just grumpy all the time? You know, and I guarantee the deeper you look, you realize that, you know, you're obviously both playing a part in it, but the only way to change that is to figure out, you know, what's going on in your world, and communication. Obviously, then you sit back, and you say, look, baby, I understand. I mean, I've taken some good hard looks at myself, and I understand that I'm the reason that we're here and we're not there and whatnot. And I want to change that. I need you to hold me accountable. I need you to understand what I need to do, and I need you to hold me accountable every single day. If I start to slip, if I start to veer back to old ways, you can't just let me do it. You can't enable it. You have to say, Cody, you promised me that it was going to be different. You promised me you would do A, B, and C, and you're veering off target. We need to figure this out. Right, so you're not being mothered or babied or whatnot. It's like a team. It's a team, and that's my wife's role, is to make sure that I stay I stay in the right lane and don't veer off.
I love it.
Yeah, big.
It's a very modest way of saying, you know, men, we've got to really own it. You know, and you know, yeah, the wife, you might every now and then might nag, but like there might be some truth behind it, because how she's really feeling, that's how she truly feels.
Yeah.
And as a man, look in the mirror and be like, you know, real men look in the mirror and be like, you know, okay, cool. All right, that's how she's feeling. What can I do? What can I change?
Yeah.
How can I make it better?
And not try to fix her, because we are warriors, we are fixers. Men are fix the problem. Whereas it's like, you've got to change that, right? We're obviously, she'll show her emotion through talking and acting and whatnot, and then we'll try to fix her. But it's not about fixing her, it's about fixing ourselves.
Yeah.
And making sure, you know, fixing ourselves so that then in return. So it's that big one of stepping up again, because when you're not taking charge and you're not stepping forward, you're not doing all these things, you honestly, and my wife's, she just looks at me like I'm a loser. Like, you're a loser, bro. So there's no respect. There's no love, there's no care. You're essentially always lying, never following through on what you said you would do. All these promises. You are a loser. So trying to change that from your wife's perspective to change you back to not being a loser means standing up, massive accountability, and being like a strong man with values and beliefs that's confident, that says, look, I've got this sorted. I'm going to take care of this. This is what we need to do as a team, and communicate it all. And she'll look at you and her eyes will change from freaking hate to love and lust and all the shit you've been missing out on, because that's all she's ever wanted.
Yeah.
Is a man that says what he's going to do, and then she can trust that will protect and provide and keep us secure as a family. That's all I've ever wanted. So the moment you do that and you acknowledge that, life at home will change.
I love that. And obviously, women do find that attractive in a man, someone who can really own, who step up and lead, someone who's ambitious, who's driven, who's got a goal and a purpose, and does it for the family, takes the family along. And I think Jordan Peterson, I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Canadian psychologist, clinician. I think one of the cool quotes he talked about was, what makes women attracted to men. Like, you don't have to be rich or wealthy, but you need to show some sort of indication or predictor of future success. Yeah. So that's someone who's like, I don't have it all now, but I'm driven. I've got a goal. I'm going to get us there. Women love that drive. Cool. Okay. So thank you so much for just blessing us with your time and your experience. You know, we're much better for it. Before we let you go and say goodbye and wrap this episode up, what's your biggest encouragement or positive, words of encouragement you want to leave with our audience? And if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so if you want to get in touch with me, you can just find me on Instagram. It's probably the best bet, which is Cody Hunter _coaching. That's probably the most, where I am most of the time. So you'll find me there. I suppose the best piece for encouragement, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. I think always be willing to have a better attitude and always be willing to learn as much as you possibly can. Above all, attitude is everything. Positive attitude, growth mindset attitude, an attitude of overcoming obstacles. We can learn and teach basically anything else. But if your attitude is poor or wrong, then you've got to adjust it. You got to change that. So having a really good attitude is obviously really important, and then always be willing to learn, because we, what you think is your current normal or who you currently are is your best version. I guarantee it's not. And you're likely very comfortable at stages. Most of us are all in this comfortable section, but there's still this massive area that's actually this beautiful part of our lives that we're yet to get to. And so being able to learn and grow and study and keep improving ourselves is just a no-brainer. The moment you stop learning is the moment you just stop growing. You're just going to stay the same. And you may think it's all right for now, but I guarantee 10 years later, if you're still the same person, you'd be probably a bit disappointed. So
Yeah. I love that. Coming from a wise man, and another wise man or genius who said this was Albert Einstein: when you stop learning, you start dying.
Yeah.
And that's coming from him.
Awesome, eh?
Always growing, always learning.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you again, Cody, for being on a
pleasure, man.
podcast. All the best. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me.